YouTube! How we doing, family? It's your boy, Yo! And this is another episode of YoHoops. I go through every NBA game every day. Today's Wednesday, October 22nd, and we have a 12-game card. I'm going to walk you through my thoughts, let you know what sides I like, and stick around, because I'll let you know my highlighted play of the day. I do this every day for free, so please, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your favorite game in the comment section below. Without further ado, let me get into today's recap. Recapping yesterday, they got me. I dropped my highlighted play of the day. I took the Oklahoma City Thunder laying 7 points against the Houston Rockets. Wow, the Thunder looked flat. I knew they'd have problems on the glass, but now they can't shoot the ball? That's crazy. 25% from behind the arc, and they took a lot of wide open shots. I counted at least 4 air balls. Shout out to everyone that had the Rockets plus the points. It was game 1, was what it was. At the end of the day, OKC are the champs. They looked fat and happy. We did cash with the Warriors laying the points, so 1-1 overall, not the worst outcome. Day 2, we've got 12 games in action today, so let's get busy. Obviously, I'm going to be getting a feel for the season for the first couple weeks, so give me a second to ramp up. Without further ado, let me get into today's games. In our first matchup, we have the Brooklyn Nets in Charlotte taking on the Charlotte Hornets. Hornets are minus 195 on the money line, and the total is 228. I don't know about the Nets, man. Rookie point guard in Igor Demin, you've got Terrence Mann and Michael Porter Jr. in your starting lineup. I don't love it. The Hornets have LaMelo and Brandon Miller back. If you guys remember, they had Charlotte hooping when they were both in the lineup last year. I like what I saw from Diabate down the stretch. You also have Miles Bridges, Trey Mann, Colin Sexton. I actually really like Charlotte on paper. Game 1 at home, I think they get this one done. We're taking the Hornets laying the 5 points as our first selection. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers in New York taking on the New York Knicks. Cavs are minus 120 on the money line, and the total is 229. There's a few game time decisions in the injury report, but this is still one of my favorite games on the board. The Knicks will be without Mitchell Robinson and Josh Hart. OG Anunoby and Karl Anthony Towns are listed as questionable. For the Cavs, they'll be without Darius Garland, and DeAndre Hunter is a game time decision. One thing we know is the Cavs are a regular season try-hard team. Don't forget, they finished last year with a record of 64-18. That's a 78% win rate, and you're giving me minus 120 on the money line? Yeah, Garland's injured, but I promise they play better without him. Man, 6'1", that's a defensive liability. I'm 6'1". You think I'm guarding Karl Anthony Towns? Come on, bro. With the Knicks banged up, Cavs in try-hard mode, especially after the postseason meltdown last year, they should win this game. We're taking the Cavs on the money line as our next selection. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the Miami Heat in Orlando taking on the Orlando Magic. Magic are minus 350 on the money line, and the total is 215. I honestly don't know what to expect from Miami, but my hopes aren't high. Their starting lineup consists of Davion Mitchell, Norman Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, and Khalil Ware. They do have individual hoopers, but I can't really imagine how they'll mesh as a team. This is a homecoming for the Magic. Everyone's healthy, back in the lineup, and now you've added Desmond Bane. I'm high on Orlando this season, and I think they win this game in dominant fashion. We're taking the Magic laying the 8.5 points as our next selection. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the Philadelphia 76ers in Boston taking on the Boston Celtics. Celtics are minus 160 on the money line, and the total is 229. Jaylen Brown is a game time decision. I really need to know if he plays, because if he doesn't, this Celtics lineup is looking like the 2024 Blazers. Anthony Simons, Sam Hauser, and Neemias Queta in your starting lineup. That's crazy. The Sixers, on the other hand, have a lot of guys back. Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid starting is huge, and similar to the Cavs with Garland, I feel like Paul George being injured low-key benefits them. He's a bum. I like Kelly Oubre and I like Adam Bona. I think the Sixers have a really good chance to win this game. We're taking the Sixers on the money line. You can find it for plus 135 odds as our next selection. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the Toronto Raptors in Atlanta taking on the Atlanta Hawks. Hawks are minus 225 on the money line, and the total is 237. This is a game where I really don't have much for you. Both lineups are at full strength. The Hawks added Porzingis and some nice pieces to their bench, so that is huge. What I will say is I really like the Raptors lineup on paper. Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, and Jakob Poeltl. If they play up to their potential, they can win some games this season. I just don't know what we're going to get game one. I'm going to lean to the Raptors plus the 5.5 points as our next selection. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the Detroit Pistons in Chicago taking on the Chicago Bulls. Pistons are minus 150 on the money line, and the total is 235.5. Detroit was already dangerous last year. Now you replace Malik Beasley, who was rigging games, with Duncan Robinson, an actual shooter. You've got one of the Thompson twins. Duren's gonna give you 14 rebounds. They're gonna look good this season. I actually hate this Bulls lineup without Kobe White. He won't play in this one, and besides that, who do you got? Isaac Okoro, Buzelis? Come on now. I think eventually Chicago will be in decent form with the return of Kobe, but tonight, this is a bad spot. We're taking the Pistons laying the 3 points as our highlighted selection of the evening. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the New Orleans Pelicans in Memphis taking on the Memphis Grizzlies. Grizzlies are minus 175 on the money line, and the total is 237. This is definitely one of my least favorite games on the board, but only because I see it as an even matchup. Ja and Zion are both kind of in the same position. Both guys desperately need bounce-back seasons, but they're working with slightly different lineups than we've seen in the past. To me, this Grizzlies bench looks a little thin. Zach Edey's out, so Santi Aldama and Gigi Jackson are your best options out the second unit. The Pelicans roster looks more complete. If you're giving me plus 150 in what I see as a coin flip, I have to take it. We're taking the Pelicans on the money line as our next selection. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the Washington Wizards in Milwaukee taking on the Milwaukee Bucks. Bucks are minus 460 on the money line, and the total is 228. I'm definitely not high on Milwaukee's backcourt, but the addition of Miles Turner is huge. Him, Giannis, and Bobby Portis are going to have a huge impact on the glass. In terms of shooters, I'd say Washington has the advantage though. CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton, Corey Kispert, Keyshawn George, these guys can all shoot the three. Of course, we've seen year after year the Wizards shoot themselves out of games, so I wouldn't be surprised at all, but at the same time, 3 points are worth more than 2. I think Washington has a better night from behind the arc than Milwaukee and finds a way to get the backdoor cover. We're taking the Wizards plus the 10 points as our next selection. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the LA Clippers in Utah taking on the Utah Jazz. Clippers are minus 415 on the money line, and the total is 226. I can't even lie, this Clippers lineup looks elite. James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard, John Collins' revenge game in Utah, and Zubac. Their bench is honestly stacked. Picked up Brook Lopez. They should beat the crap out of the Jazz. Utah was a seller this offseason. They're currently in a rebuild. They expect to lose this game by 20 plus. We're taking the Clippers laying the 10 points as our next selection. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the San Antonio Spurs in Dallas taking on the Dallas Mavericks. Mavs are minus 145 on the money line, and the total is 224.5. De'Aaron Fox is out, so that's huge for San Antonio. I don't know if I trust Jordan McLaughlin to run an NBA offense with only 3 points in my back pocket. The Mavs have D'Angelo Russell as their starting point guard, which I don't love either, but I think we see Cooper Flagg handling the ball a lot, so it offsets it a little bit. I do expect a big game from Wemby, but at the same time, he's got Anthony Davis guarding him. You're crazy if you don't think AD can at least give him problems. With Fox in the lineup, I think the Spurs are okay this year, but tonight, this is a tough spot. We're taking the Mavs laying the 3 points as our next selection. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves in Portland taking on the Portland Trailblazers. Wolves are minus 185 on the money line, and the total is 220.5. Anthony Edwards is a game time decision tonight, so of course, I need to know if he plays. With him in, I'm on the fence, but if he doesn't play, I have to roll with the Blazers. Drew Holiday really moves the needle for me. Denny Advia is coming into his own. Jeremy Grant's a hooper. I'd say they have the better supporting cast. Granted, Portland doesn't have a superstar, so their entire team is made up of role players, but without Ant, they'll have a really good shot to win this game. I'll lean towards the Blazers on the money line as our next selection. Let's move. In our last and final matchup, we have the Sacramento Kings in Phoenix taking on the Phoenix Suns. Suns are minus 185 on the money line, and the total is 229.5. This is a game I will absolutely not be watching. The Kings will be without Domantas Sabonis, and the Suns will be without Jalen Green. We'll get an idea tonight, but I'm not sure what to make of either roster in 2025. Westbrook, DeRozan, and Zach LaVine, it could work, but you don't want Drew Eubanks as your center. Then on the Suns, you have Dylan Brooks, Ryan Dunn, Mark Williams. A lot of new looks this season. For me, I think we see a lot of points in this one. You've got a lot of scorers on the court, but I can't really find one defender. The paint will be wide open for the Suns with Eubanks as your rim protector. We should soar over this total. We're taking the Kings and Suns over 229.5 as our last and final selection. And that's going to conclude today's video. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. First big card today. Let's knock it out the park. I appreciate the support so much. I do this every day for free, so please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's your boy, Yo! And until the next one, I'ma catch y'all. Peace.